everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you again for joining us for our session number 13. Can you believe it's been 13 sessions for #GrowHerGame Filipinas Football Forum at Home series. And today we have an in-depth discussion of on the development of women's football with our guest, who I will not introduce, but my co-moderator, Natasha Alquiros. Take it away.
So hello everyone, and of course we have a very, very special guest with us today, the FIFA Council member and Philippine Football Federation President, Sir Mariano V. Araneta, also known as Sir Nonong. Sir Nonong, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, I'm good to be around women now.
And we noticed from the photos that we used in the cover and to looking at you now, you look healthier, thinner, and looking good.
Well, maybe there's not so much stress because of the pandemic. But anyway, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be your guest, and congratulations on what you've been doing. You know, I mean, this is the 13th. I said the 13th edition, the lucky 13.
Yes.
This time we'll make it lucky 13 because
whatever questions or what what questions you want me to answer. Well, I can answer it well for you and for your audience.
Yes, Sir Nonong. Let's start off first with, of course, how you got into football. We want to know, of course, a little bit more about you, and for our viewers out there to get to know you a bit more personally. How did you start your journey in football? So take us through it.
Tasha, I grew up in Barotac, Nuevo, and at the time Barotac, Nuevo was very popular because I mean it's popular up to now because of football. And in Barotac we only play football. So when I was growing up, there were so many teams from Manila that go there and play, like Army, Air Force, Navy, all these big teams before. They used to go there during our town fiesta and play there. So, and nakita mo naman when you were there, Tasha, there were small boys there that were picking up the balls. When I was growing up, I was one of those small boys picking up the balls when, during their shooting practice or something like that. And that's why, we started playing. I started playing football at the age of 6 or 7 when I was in elementary. And in Barotac kasi we have leagues, we have tournaments, we have the summer, we have December, and it's an all year round activity for football. That's why we embrace football there very, very well. So that's how I started playing football, is because of I grew up in a town where football is I think the only sport that was being played. Although there are other sports, but football was the sport that was being played. And high school, I still continued to play, and in college, I went to the UP. I started to play for the varsity, and I was fortunate to be, selected for the national team in 1975. So, and after that, then I just played for the national team for I think 10 years with the national team until I retired, and between the national team, I was playing for the club teams as well. I played for several club teams like UTEX, CDCP, and the last Pepsi Cola, and I think I played for Air Force. And in CDCP, UTEX, we won the first National League Championship. And also when I was with CDCP, we also won the National League. And when I went to Air Force, we won it 6 straight, I think. National League Championship. So, and then after that, I made a sabbatical leave from football. But of course, football is in my heart. So when they made me the president of Iloilo Football Association, so I came back to football also. So that's how, and then later on, I became the president. So that's how my journey of football is. It started in Barotac, Nuevo.
Yes, of course, Barotac Nueva, very special place. Even for me, myself, I learned playing football there every summer. I would go to Barotac, play in the tournaments there as well, and see you there as well, being one of the ones who would head the tournaments and make sure that football was growing there. But Sir Nono, of course, you were, it's a great journey. You could see that football has played a big part of your life. But this is another question. What made you decide to run again for PFF President? The second time around.
Well, not the second time, the third time, I think the second. But because of what was going to happen, and the one that was running against me was Ricky Anson. Okay, and we know there's a family feud.
Yeah,
the Anson feud. And I didn't want football to be a collateral damage. As of the moment, there are cases against them, cases against the brother, cases against sisters, and I didn't want football to be dragged into that, to be dragged into the field. That's the only reason why I ran again, because I wanted football to be isolated from this problem.
Definitely. And we'll dive deep now inside women's football as we go away from the politics of it all and go straight into women's football. First of all, we want to say congratulations as well on the success of women's football, most especially over the past 10 years. We've had such success in the youth division, silver medalists in tournaments for the youth division, and of course, the continuous qualifications of the senior team. What do you think the difference has been, most especially in the past 5 years, that allowed women's football to really grow much more exponentially?
Well, of course, the success also of the women's, football worldwide. It gives an inspiration to the players. The success of the Women's World Cup, all these things. It cascades to the local scene. That like players like you want to play in the World Cup. You want to play in the Asian Cup, and there are more tournaments now, and that's why we have been supporting the women's football. Personally, I've been supporting women's football. Belay can attest to that.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
So I think we have a better chance of qualifying the World Cup in women's football than in men's football. And
I agree with that.
And so we have to. There is a potential for women's football in the country. We have a young population. We have a growing population. So all these things are the ingredients probably are there, except probably that we still don't have a lot of tournaments. So basically what we are trying to do is probably get more tournaments for the women's. So, and we can see among the passion of the women's team, that they're there to really give not only 100%, more than 100% when they play for the success actually of women's football. We have some success, as you said, in under 14, under 15, and also our women's team. We have qualified for the first time the Asian Cup in Jordan, and we're just one win away from having a stint in the World Cup. Imagine that. So I think we still continue to support football. Women's football, and that's also the thrust of FIFA right now. It's really to grow women's football. We have before the Women's World Cup was just another tournament, but now it's a different tournament. It's to say, when I say another tournament, is that it was just sponsored by the World Cup, the Men's World Cup. Now we have a set of, it's like the Men's World Cup already in terms of broadcasting rights, commercial rights. It's a different set, So it's different from men's football. So that shows you how women's football is growing worldwide. And we have seen the success in France. You know, even France was saying, women's football brought in revenues to the country. And now with the next football World Cup, which we have voted, I think last June, which will be in Asia. I mean, we consider Australia as part of Asia. Asia and Oceania. For the first time, it's going to be two confederations hosting the Women's World Cup. Even the Australian government has promised to, to put in government money to support the revenue for the Women's World Cup. So more revenues for the women's football. And as I said, we'll discuss later how FIFA is going to help women's football. So I think that's, it boils down to really awareness of women playing football. And that's why I said, if you have a successful World Cup, a successful Asian Cup, then I think the women in the Philippines women who play football in the Philippines will have a goal of playing someday in the Asian Cup, although we have played already in the Asian Cup, in the World Cup. So I think the direction really is to support women's football more, and put in more resources to women's football.
Yes, and as we were talking about, you've mentioned, of course, the World Cup, very exciting news, knowing that for the Women's World Cup in 2023, there's going to be 8 additional slots, in Australia and in New Zealand. What do you think are the chances of the women's national team when it comes to qualification?
Well, as long as we have tournaments year in, year out, for women, I think we have a better chance because we also have players who are playing in the US, So that's also a plus factor for the Philippine women's team. So if we have a women's league here that really is very competitive, then the quality of the game will improve. Then we have a good chance of qualifying for the World Cup, because in Asia we're just talking about how many women's team are there, that are really, of course we have China, Japan, Korea, in Thailand here, and maybe Vietnam, but we're not far behind from Thailand. We're not far behind from Vietnam. So we have a good chance of, even being the champions in ASEAN region. And ASEAN region women's football is strong, Thailand has qualified for the World Cup, I think, twice already. So, in the West, except Jordan, I think the other countries in the West are not playing women's football yet. We have beaten Iran. So I think only in East Asia, where when I say East Asia, is Southeast Asia and East Asia, which is Japan, Korea, and ASEAN. So if we have competitions in ASEAN year in, year out also, and with our counterparts in East Asia, then I think the quality of football, women's football, will really improve. And we have a very good chance of qualifying.
Yes. And Sir Nonong, you also mentioned about the women's league, and depending on the number of games that are played by our girls. So when it comes to the growth and, of course, the professionalization of the women's league, we've seen how it is in Japan and other countries where they're trying to make it much more professional. Does the PFF plan to improve the women's league as well?
Well, I think we need more than 10 teams, actually, to have more competitions, more games, actually. Last time we had, I think, 90 games in our 90 games, I mean, that's the total. But for a player, we need more games, to at least 25 or 20. They say how many games per year to be competitive, really, for a player. So we have to strive for that for a player. maybe our women's league, we have to strive for that a player plays at least 25 games a year, And with the support now of FIFA coming in, I think we can expand the women's league, and really make it more competitive, make it more exciting. I think Belay is part of the, PFF women's department. They can, they can, give ideas. You can give ideas on how to really expand and improve the league. It has to come from you. It has to come from women's coaches. It has to come from the players.
And of course, we know that there's COVID happening right now. Everything depends on, how everything will go. But what do you think are the possible projects that are still possible for women's football in 2020 towards the end of the year? And if not, what are the possible projects for 2021?
Well, as I said earlier, that they are already allowing professional leagues to start practicing. And I talked to Popoy Wico, is with volleyball. I said, why? They said that, we're amateur. So we have submitted, again, the protocols for them to be able to start their league, the PVL or the PSL, the volleyball. So I think we have the protocols already in football, even if it's professional or amateur. The requirements are the same as far as venue, as far as testing, as far as safety of the players are concerned. If they will allow volleyball as an amateur league to resume, then for sure we will also put on the table a proposal to resume the women's league this year. So we're just hoping that IATF will allow that to happen, so that women's football will start. Now, if they will not allow, then we will definitely for 2021 we will have another women's. We have a women's league and maybe a women's cup. To make sure that players play more games, and we're supposed to start the under 16 and the under 18 regional competitions this year. For our regional FAs. And if that doesn't happen, then we will start it next year. We need more local competitions, actually. As even in our men's youth, we said we have to start with under 13, 15, 17. And for the women's, we have 16, 18. So that's going to be on a yearly basis, yearly event. It's not just a one-time event, but it has to be yearly so that, players, girls will have something to look forward to, a tournament that they have to look forward to. And hopefully with the Palarong Pambansa, they can also start with even for the under 13 women's girls competition. Palarong Pambansa only has, I think, we're starting with the futsal girls, but we need more field, football game tournaments under the Palarong Pambansa. So hopefully we can also convince DepEd to start with even for the under 13 girls competition, so that we have the under 13, under 16, under 18 every year. So as I said, we need more competitions to have better players. I think there's no debate about that. That competitions really improve the quality of the game of a player.
And definitely, Sir Nonong, as you were mentioning the U16 and most especially that U18, actually my next question was really about to be how are you going to address the lack, especially in continuity of our U14s, our U16s who are doing well. There is that gap before they reach that senior team. So can you take us into the plans for the U18? Because that seems to be that gap for the women's football.
Well, it's still going to be, our U18 is going to be still regional championship, because we still have to look first whether there are enough teams for a national championship. because we want to encourage our regional football associations to have their own local tournaments. You see, when I started playing football in Barotac, there was no PFF. There was no, but our local LGUs sponsor the tournaments. We have tournaments between towns. We have tournaments in our town. And we didn't have the support of the national association to start our own local tournaments. And I think that's what the RFA should do, to have their own initiative to start their own local tournaments. And from there, then we will sponsor, we will, bankroll the regional tournaments, international tournaments. But they have to have their own local tournaments and not depend on the PFF to support their own local tournament, because that's what they're supposed to do, to really put in their local tournaments. They're there to, to see to it that football is being played in their locality. If football is not played in their locality, so why should you be an active member of the PFF when you are an inactive RFA? You don't have girls football. You don't have grassroots. All these things should be under the initiative of the regional football associations. And I think we have to change the mindset of these local associations that, this initiative should come from them. PFF is there to help, okay? Train their coaches, the referees, and provide the avenue to play in a regional setting or in a national setting. We're there to put that, to support that.
Definitely. I think that we should highlight that whole section that you just talked about, most especially to making sure that all the FAs as well have an active role, not an inactive, but an active role in making sure that women's football also develops in each area with the PFF but the FAs also have to be active in themselves.
Yeah, we can make that as a requirement for them. I think I'll make that a requirement in our next board meeting, that they should have, well, they should participate in at least two tournaments in the men's and one tournament in the women's. At least they should do that to be considered as an active member of the PFF. Otherwise, if they don't do that, then they should be considered inactive, and we have to change there are other associations that are applying. So who wants to be part of the PFF? There are other provincial associations that want to apply who are active, but because our hands are tied because of what FIFA has done before, that they said only 33 associations. But now I think we want to go back to FIFA and say, look, there are other associations that are active as well. So what do we do with this? And let's change the structure again of the PFF so that only active members can be, have a chance to be considered as a PFF regional association member.
Yeah. I think that's a great clarification, because everyone's always asking, like, the PFF is not doing anything or things like that. But it's a great reminder that it is a governing body that assists in whatever they can, like more education for coaches, for referees. But in terms of actually activating on the ground, I think that's good to clarify that the RFAs need to activate on the ground, and they get support from the PFF after activation.
Yeah.
Definitely. And of course, moving forward from that, I think that it's important you're able to tackle that, most especially because when it comes to the youth division and in connection to the RFA and the FAs, and making sure that we grow football as well, not just in Manila, but in all the other areas as well. And moving on to that, there's this question that's been on everyone's mind. It's been on my mind. It's been on Belay's mind as well. There's been a lot of excitement about the announcement of FIFA regarding the relief funding. And of course, that portion that's supposed to be allocated for women's football. So, Sir Nonong, can you please explain to us how this works in terms of what is the budget and what is supposed to be allocated for women's football?
No, women's football will have each member associations of FIFA will be getting $500,000 to develop women's football. I think that will be given this July, but I'm still waiting for the details on how to spend that money. Because it's just all big that we support women's football. Will it be spent for the women's league, for coaching? So we're still waiting for that guidelines from FIFA administration. Although that has been approved already in our last council meeting last June 25. 500,000 just set aside for women's football.
Okay, that's on record, right? That's on record. $500,000 will be for women's football.
Women's football, yeah.
Okay. Exclamation point, period, not be reversed. That's already the budget.
We had that. We discussed that previous to our council meeting last June.
Yes.
We discussed that in our last council meeting in Shanghai, wherein FIFA decided to. I mean, without that was still not. There was still no pandemic.
Yeah.
But FIFA already decided that, saying that in our council meeting, saying that FIFA has a reserve of $2.8 billion US. That's set aside.
Yeah.
All the competitions are already fully funded, and we still have 2.8 billion. And then in our council meeting, it was decided that we release 1.3 billion for football again, and that out of that 1.3 billion, 500 million will go to women's football. So that was decided in Shanghai, but we formalized that here in our last meeting that 500,000 will go to women's football for its $500,000 US for its member association. Yeah.
Okay, and just so
that's already an official statement from FIFA.
Okay, but we'll hold you accountable for that. So
yeah.
But of course, how does the PFF how do you plan to use that for women's football
as soon as we have the guidelines?
Yes,
of course, as soon as we have the guidelines, and Belay would know that because he's part of the PFF women's department. So as soon as we have the guidelines, then the board of governors will discuss on how to spend this based on the guidelines. So we will let you know when all the stakeholders in women's, even the coaches, we will have a meeting, and we'll schedule a Zoom meeting with the stakeholders in women's football, and we will say that okay, these are the guidelines. So what can you contribute as far as what are your inputs in making sure that this money is well spent for the development of women's football? That's it.
Definitely very exciting news to hear moving forward, most especially for women's football, for all the people out there, most especially those who have a stake in women's football. It's nice to see, like with what Sir Nonong said, that football is alive and well. FIFA has her back. They're able to help us during these tough times, and everyone wants to make sure that women's football continues on that path that we're going through. We're on an accelerated path for women's football. Belay, I know there are other people who have questions as well. Do you want to start as well with other people who want to chime in on this conversation?
Actually, it's kind of repeating things that we've talked about, but then I will ask it anyway. Both our girls teams, this is from Coach Anto Gonzalez, both our girls teams, U14 and U15, finished runners-up in AFF and AFC, and the senior team Asian Cup semis in the SEA Games, and have achieved considerable success on the international stage despite limited local competitions and short preparations. Do you think these achievements improve the popularity of the women's game in the country, and what active role did the Federation do to promote the women's game through these successes?
Well, I said earlier, maybe we can start the under-16 and the under-18. I mean, tournament that I said there's a gap. So with these tournaments, I mean, awareness of football. It has to be awareness of women's football. It will also help the expand the awareness of that football is being played not only in this under 13, under 14, but also under 16, under 18. More tournaments, I think, more tournaments for women's. And of course, the success of the Southeast Asian Games, you have seen the crowd cheering the Philippine team, and we hope that they will continue to support the women's team.
Yes.
I'll ask in another question as well. This one came from Kevin Estrada. So with the PFL getting the commitment with Qatar Airways, will there be the same plans in finding the title sponsor for the Women's League to gradually professionalize them?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, with the $500,000 that will be allocated for women's football, then we can probably tap a sponsor where we say, here, there's money to run the league, and why don't you join the bandwagon, so that we can improve more the league, I think we really have to sell the league,
yes,
to be able to attract the sponsors. We're I think, and based on the support of FIFA, we'll be saying that, look, we have the support of FIFA, we have the support, in terms of funding. It's just really, we need the support to really expand the league, improve the league, and make the league more attractive and make them more interesting. So I think that's where we need to sit down and really improve on promoting the league.
Yeah, in relation to that also, Sir Nono, we had guest coaches from club teams part of the league. I think one of the concerns, Tasha, was there also that we need to teach them how to be sustainable. I think women's clubs, different from men's clubs, don't know how to be self-sustaining, and it's very difficult for them to manage their finances. So I think maybe that might be one of the steps that we need to take as well.
Yeah, if, as I said, if the league is successful, then I think sponsors will come in, even sponsor the team. We're not talking about so many millions. Just talking about, for the allowances of the players, I hope that we can duplicate what volleyball has done. Their league is expanding, and the players are, there are sponsors for the team. So I think if we have a league that's interesting, then I think even sponsors for the team will come in. So we really have to look at that and how to make the league sustainable and more attractive to the sponsors.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard that one part where you said that allowances for players. My ears went sharp on that. That sounds like a very good plan moving forward, most especially as well for our national team players. And of course, we've discussed the local leagues, but how about for the women's national team, most especially in their preparations for the 2023 World Cup? How else does the PFF plan to support and help them prepare for their World Cup qualifications?
As far as the women's allowances is concerned, in the men's, we only give during practice and during the games.
Yes.
Because they're given salaries for their clubs. But for the women, it's a different situation, because there's no allowances. I know that there's no allowances for the players that are playing in the league. Well, we have money from PSC, that is being given to our national team players. And I think we have to tap also the PSC money for our national team, for our national team players. And of course, we also have to, allocate a portion of the funding from FIFA for our women's national team players as well. And as I said, we can tap a godfather to really the manager of the team, and support also the team I think we have before we had Jeff Cheng who was supporting the women's team.
Yes.
And we can tap individuals also really to support the women's team, because I think we have a very good chance of qualifying.
Yes. Definitely. And Sir Nonang, I'd also like to say that a lot of the questions, it's very nice to know you're very straight up. You don't shy away from the questions that we're asking you. You're willing to say it as it is. And of course, give us the answers that we've been looking for and just been speculating about. How about on that long term? We just also want to ask, before we end all of this, what are the PFF's goals for women's football in our country? For you, most especially, what's your vision for women's football?
Well, I want to have a like a league, women's league that's sustainable, wherein players will look for the young players are looking forward to playing that league, and I hope that we can make the league more successful. More, I said, the women's league, add more teams, and to be able to sustain that also, we have to develop players in the country, grow women's football in the country. Not only in Metro Manila, because our league is just confined to Metro Manila at the moment,
Yeah.
But it's going to be the grow women's football in the provinces as well. Mm-hmm. And hopefully with this tournament that we are trying to start, under 16, under 18, the women's football will grow in the provinces. More awareness of people in the provinces. And of course, the overall vision is really to qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Because I think our women's team has a better chance. I said, women's better chance of qualifying in the World Cup. So my aim is really just to grow women's football to a level wherein we are competitive with our neighbors like Thailand or Vietnam. I think when we go to that level, we can compete already with other teams in Asia as well. Yeah.
Definitely. And we're very close to that level. You'd see it from our results and most especially in just the SEA Games that happened last 2019. We're in arm's length with these countries. And of course, Sir Nonong, we'd like...
The funding from FIFA will always be there.
Yes.
Our target for Qatar World Cup is 6.4 billion revenues. Okay? And that's just the men's World Cup. If the women's World Cup will also, add revenues to FIFA, because before it was just considered as I said earlier, parang sinasubsidize lang ng men's World Cup yun eh. But now women's World Cup is not going to be subsidized by the men's World Cup. It has to have its own marketing, its own commercial, its own television. So we will have more funding from FIFA for women's World Cup. And the next World Cup after Qatar is the joint World Cup, hosting of Mexico, Canada, and US. And these three countries they said that the minimum revenue from the World Cup in 2026 will be $10 billion. So more money for football development will go to FIFA, come from FIFA. Wow. So we will be seeing a lot of more funding support from FIFA in the coming years. Even if I'm not in the council anymore, I'm not the president of FIFA anymore, but as members of FIFA, we will see, in the future, more funding for football development, not only for men's, but for women's as well. And what we have seen is that already in this year. So I think that's something to look forward to, that, football will grow, and hopefully women's football will grow more in the Philippines.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Sir Nonong, for those words and, of course, encouragement for women's football. It's great to see and know that the funding is coming, the support is coming. There is support for women's football. Now it's all about the follow through, and we hope to be hand in hand with the PFF to make sure that we reach the dreams for women's football and we continuously see the growth of women's football. We thank you so much for your time. I'll pass it on over first to Belay.
Okay, thanks, Tosh. And thank you, Sir Nonong, for giving us your time, your experience, your insights, especially for women's football. And he mentioned earlier that, yes, I know that Sir Nonong really personally supports and backs women's football, especially the women's national team. And everything he's sharing with us today, we're so excited for it. And we have the backing here already. Tosh, Mia, and I have been working really hard to grow her game here. And you have the support of everyone who joined us every Thursday. And for us, it's very hard to top this session that we had with you, Sir Nono. So much information given to us and lots to look forward to and be excited about. So thank you, Sir Nonong, again for joining us.
Welcome, Belay. Yeah.
Hopefully, we can move forward and achieve more success for women's football all around. Thank you, everyone, also for joining us, and we will see you next Thursday on #GrowHerGame Filipinas Football Forum at Home series. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.